Welcome to the Undiscovered Gems podcast, hosted by NBA legend and business powerhouse Charles D. Smith, highlighting today's best and brightest business minds.
Hello, welcome to another show of Undiscovered Gems. I'm your host, Charles D. Smith. We are here with a professional of the year, Diana Bejasa. Diana lives in Hawaii, where it's really warm right now, and I'm on the East Coast where it's cold, but she's got an incredible background. Diana comes from Wall Street, a Wall Street executive that works with CEOs that were doing deals with billion-dollar debt. She went from there to become an accomplished chef. Now, today, she's a speaker, an author, and more importantly, a coach. And we're going to hear a lot about that coaching. Diana, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be with you today, Charles. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. How's the weather there in Hawaii?
80 degrees and ocean breeze all year long.
Nice, nice. Well, we're going to get into your very intriguing background of how you came to where you are today, which you're a coach, you're an author, you're a speaker. Tell us, from Wall Street to cooking to being a coach. Diana, how did that happen?
Well, Charles, I'll tell you, I never ever imagined I would be on this journey. I was the person who thought that life coaching was a fake job. I remember working on Wall Street and seeing people who took a lunch hour and thinking that that was crazy. I was like, who has time to have lunch outside in a park? Like that just seemed completely different from the life that I lived. Uh, but I've faced a series of challenges in life that really shaped me in a way that I think could have taken me down, but have really just taken me forward. I'm a 9/11 survivor. I grew up and went to high school downtown, 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center. And I
Mm,
remember that day coming to school. It was the beginning of September, first few weeks of school. And I was thinking about what most seniors in high school would be thinking about. I was thinking about boys. I was thinking about outfits for the
right.
week, keeping my first week clothes really fresh. And I was also thinking about colleges, and I was focused on all these things that I thought mattered. And when planes hit the World Trade Center, and I could literally see that through my classroom window, things that they wouldn't show you on TV. It was like all the things that I thought mattered didn't. And
Mm,
I just became incredibly focused on what really did. And I think that being that close, touching death in that way, I also have a deadly peanut allergy. So there have just been many instances in my life where I realized I didn't know how long I had left. And that has shaped
mm,
me to make decisions that I don't think most people would be willing, have the perspective of making. So when I worked on
hmm.
Wall Street, I did that up until the global financial crisis. And when the debt market, the subprime debt market, bottomed out, it hit everything up into corporate grade bonds, and that was where I was working. So when that happened, I thought to myself, okay, well, what's my next career move? When my manager lost his job, I was thinking about what was going to happen to me. And I thought about, do I go back to business school? Do I work at a hedge fund? Do I work for an insurance company? And I heard from my intuition that day, and it told me if I was going back to school, it was going to be culinary school.
Mm,
And at the time, that made no sense, right? Like going from a six-figure job to making $10 an hour, like why would anybody do that? But for me, it also made perfect sense because after those 12, 14, 16-hour days, I would want to go home and cook. I wanted to turn on the stove or turn on the oven, and that was my means of relaxation. So I realized, this thing that I'm passionate about, I have this hard work ethic. I believe that I can be successful in any industry that I pursue, and especially if I'm doing it with passion. So that's what
sure.
led me into cooking. And I loved that career. I loved cooking. I was so passionate about it. I still love to cook with my little daughter. But what happened was I let that passion kind of blind me. So
Mm,
I developed chronic illness. I developed chronic pain. I had back pain. I had bone spurs. I had all these issues,
mm,
literally from head to toe. And when I started balding, right, I developed hair loss, alopecia areata, And that kind of was my wake up call because, like all the other stuff I could cover up, right? And I could still cover up the hair. But when I was going to doctors every single week, a different doctor, each of them telling me that what was going on in my body was related to stress, I realized, oh, you know what? Stress is my
Mm.
problem. It's the stress in my life that's causing all of this different
Hmm.
issues that I'm going through. And so my solution, at the time was, okay, well, then I'm going to eliminate all the stress in my life. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to do all the things that I've always wanted to do that never seemed like it was possible. I'm going to move to Hawaii. I'd been talking about it for years. I'm going to transform my health. I'm going to start my own business. And I shared these dreams I had with my husband at the time. And he asked me, okay, well, what's going to be different? And I really want to sit with that question. What's going to be different? Because sometimes we have these goals in life, we have these dreams, these desires for
Sure.
what we want to do. And we really got to think about, okay, well, what's really going to be different? Because the truth is, Charles, and you know this from your illustrious career, just changing the window dressing doesn't change what's really on inside. And you're just going to bring
Hmm.
that same stuff into whatever career, whatever relationships you have in the past. And so I realized, like, yes, stress was part of the problem, but I needed to look deeper into the root of what was really going on
Mm.
for myself. And so that led me down this path of self development that I was looking again for my dream career. And as I was talking to my coach, she suggested to me, well, have you considered being a life coach? Because she knew about my life experience, the challenges I'd overcome. And I told her the truth, which I shared with you earlier, which I was, that's a fake job.
Hmm.
That didn't seem like real work because I had this mental programming that real work fit into a certain kind of box, right? Like it was these high performing, um, high stress careers that had a lot of
Mm.
clout or recognition, and that that more sensitive or understanding our psyche and our emotional state and our well-being wasn't real. But
Hmm.
in the end, it turned out to be the realest stuff that's possible. So that change, that willingness to kind of go deeper beyond just blaming the outside stuff that seemed to be my problem. When I started to get into the inner stuff, when I took responsibility for how I was creating the challenges that were going on in my life, that's when everything changed. I went from an super introverted, socially anxious person who always stayed behind the scenes into to become an international speaker. I ended up writing and creating my book, the Manifest Your Dreams Journal. I became a coach. Like so much of my life changed, and what I found is that the principles that I've learned in this time, they've just continued to serve me, even as I became an unexpected single mom, healing from infidelity um, and all those different things. Like
Hmm.
these same mindsets, this ability to overcome. I always tell my clients, like when we work together, we're gonna go through and transform the situation, I call them, that you're facing. But we're going to turn it into fertilizer for your new dream. And that's what I believe is possible, no matter how challenging the pile of crap that we're facing is. I think that we can step out of that, use that to plant really great seeds as fertilizer, and use that to really fuel our growth.
Got it. That's awesome. What a journey you've been on. I can identify with you. My office was at 55 Broad during 9/11. I did have alopecia areata when I played my first year in the NBA, so I know what stress is all about. And I understand what you're saying about the different diverse group of people that you've worked with, where you've gained an education dealing with people to understand a lot of challenges in your own, and you found solutions to them and you're sharing them. So, uh, congrats to you on discovering your purpose and living a life now that you feel very happy and comfortable with. So congrats on that, Diana.
Thank you.
Um, Diana, you work with various people coaching now. Can you give us an example of how you work with people and how you coach them?
Yeah, sure. So I work with the premise of this really little known formula known as the results formula. So, what I find a lot of people do that when they have like a goal or something that they want to achieve is they focus on creating an action plan. They think about all the things that they need to do in order to have this different life. And through time, especially, like there may be some places where they're able to achieve that, but oftentimes I find that there are some places where it seems like no matter what they try to do, the success seems elusive. And what I do is use this results formula framework to help them consistently achieve results in every area of life. And once they know how to do it, like I was saying, it's a proven, reliable, repeatable system and process that they can do over and over again. So instead of simply focusing on the action that they know that they need to do, we actually start at the very beginning, and we look at our thoughts. So what we work on first is realizing that our thoughts impact our feelings. So for example, if you're thinking the thought, Charles, like, oh my God, where's my cell phone? It's like you can immediately feel that inside your body, like, the sense of panic, like all that immediately triggers a feeling. And we also know that our feelings impact our actions. So when we have a sales script, for example, and there are two different people with the same sales script, and one person feels confident and the other person feels fearful, you can smell that all over that sales script. And you're more likely to want to do business with a person who comes across as confident versus the person who comes
Mm,
across as fearful. Uh,
sure.
so when we have those feelings, right, we gotta check our emotional state. For a long time, I thought it was about suppressing my emotions or just forcing through them, and our emotions really are tied to our overall subconscious beliefs. And so I help my clients in that realm. But first, we look at their thoughts, right? So a lot of times, what I find is people know exactly what they don't want. They're focused on, I don't
Mhm.
want more stress. I don't want more health issues. I don't want more problems in my marriage. I don't want. And it's like we have a whole list of what we don't want. But when I ask people, okay, well, then what do you want? All of a sudden it's crickets. They have no
Mhm.
clue. They can outline and write a dissertation on all the problems, but when it comes to writing about what they really want, they're blank. And what we don't realize, just understanding our brain, because for me, basically, in the work I do, I'm still a very math, science, process oriented person. The brain science behind this is that our brain focuses on what we can emotionalize. So when we can think and get upset about all the things we don't want, but we have a very difficult time conceptualizing what we do want and feeling
Mhm.
connected to that, we're just naturally going to create an emotional state that's related to whatever we feel strongest. So that's how so many times we end up creating what we don't want, because we're so connected to it. We're so upset about it. We're so angry, anxious, whatever that is. Um, so that's the first thing I help my clients do, is to create a vision, because the way that our brain works is by understand by communicating through pictures. So, for example, Charles, if I said to you, whatever you do, do not think about a green turtle. Whatever you do, do not like don't allow a green turtle into your mind. Do not think about what a green turtle looks like. Don't think about it crawling in the sand. Like, what do you see?
A green turtle crawling in the sand.
Right. So, what that means is our brain doesn't understand the word not. And what it does see is imagery, right? So, what we want to do is create a really powerful vision that's connected to us emotionally. So, when I worked with my clients, I'm looking to help them transform, like I'm reverse engineering. Okay, you don't want these things. What is it you really want? How do we emotionalize that so that it feels really powerful and connected to you? And that's the first kind of step that we take together. The next step, as we connect to this vision, this higher vibration result mentally of what we want, is then we got to think about and notice all the stuff that bubbles up because it feels out of alignment with the vision or the dream that we have. And that just naturally happens because as we're starting to move mentally into a new space, feeling different, taking action differently, what will naturally happen for us is all the stuff that doesn't align with that is going to come up and say, well, hey, I have this proof that I can't be in a loving relationship. I have this proof that I can't lose weight. I have this proof that I'm going to have this chronic illness or autoimmune disease my whole life. And we have all these beliefs that then come up and say, well, no, that may be possible for other people, but not for me. And I came across this work really, the next part, this feeling part, completely by accident. I, for a long time, I mean, I know you were at 55 Broad on 9/11. I never wanted to identify as a survivor. I didn't want to identify as a victim. And I had an incident when I was cooking and working as a chef where one of the restaurants that I served was actually the cafe at the 9/11 Museum and Memorial. And during a break between training sessions, I went downstairs to talk to to, just to check out the exhibit. One of the managers suggested I do. And I literally couldn't walk through there without having like a panic attack. I like tried to run out. I couldn't breathe. And there are lots of ways that I share that. I share that because there are lots of ways that our trauma and the things that happened to us when we were
Mm,
children, they actually show up in our life. And we might think that, there's nothing about that that's still affecting us, but there actually can be a lot of ways that these
sure.
patterns are getting recreated. I was just talking to a client yesterday, or I think it was last week, about how the patterns of his father's explosive anger and his mom's attempts to people please or to kind of be the peacemaker were showing up in his business 40 years later. So there are so many ways that these beliefs, these things that we internalized as children, how they continue to show up even decades afterwards. And when I work with clients, I work with them for just a couple months, and it doesn't necessarily seem to them like it's possible to heal from these big issues that have been around for decades. But literally within weeks, uh, they're healing from stuff that has been around for decades. And they
Mm,
don't even need to necessarily know or identify what that is because the form of healing from feeling and subconscious um, blocks that I use is called thought field therapy. It was developed by a clinical psychologist named Dr. Roger Callahan back in the 1980s. And so this is,
mm,
again, me being my math and science person. This is based in evidence that demonstrates a decrease in cortisol, a an
sure.
increase in heart rate variability, like all these different things that can then allow for us when we're feeling more like how we want to and we don't have this subconscious, the 80% of us that's holding us down. This is
Right.
how when we set up to take that action, which is step 3 in the results formula, how everything kind of accelerates even faster. And I use a series of success strategies in that last phase with my clients. I call it quantum leap secrets,
Mm,
where we're really focused on elevating their action by using some of the same strategies that transformed Henry Ford's life, that transformed Thomas Edison's life, um, and allowed for them to achieve really extraordinary things. But I also, in that, I combine throughout all of my coaching, I combine AI. So as a business owner, and just as a kind of tech nerd, I like looking at how is it that AI can make our life easier, that it can um, help us accelerate the process. And part of how I discovered that was, just being a single mom, because everything I teach is something that I've learned myself or used myself. Being a single mom, there is so many times where I just don't feel like I have the mental load to take care of things or do things. And, I might need to create emails or generate ideas. And it's like, my brain's just not there. And I started to use AI to help me through that generation process. And because of my business experience, a lot of times I'm creating prompts or using that that strategy in a way that allows for us to grow our business, to grow professionally without it taking up tons of time and energy. So those are just a couple of the ways that I end up helping my clients to save their time, save their energy. I've even had clients who, when we worked together, we were focused on their business. And one of my clients, she had vitiligo, the disease that, or the condition that Michael Jackson had.
Sure.
And she actually saw herself getting her color back. So there's so many different ways that, because we're
Mm.
working with energy at its fundamental, um, as a fundamental force behind how we're transforming, so many other things change. So even when we're focused on our professional lives, I've seen my clients' relationships change, their health change, like, their own fulfillment. And for me, it's just profound. I was talking to somebody today, and um, we were talking about their coffee addiction. And I remember when I worked on Wall Street, right, working 16, 18
Hmm.
hours a day, having this, needing like 8 cups of coffee just to survive, and like 5 alarms that I would set just to make sure I woke up in time. And
Wow.
I've gone from that to, in just a few years, I've been coaching for about 6, 7 years, 7 years now. Um, Going from that to figuring out and unlocking secrets to needing no caffeine anymore at all, and waking up every single morning before the sun rises feeling energized and empowered. And that is still with a little one who's under 2 and doing it as a
Oh, wow.
single mom.
Hmm. Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about your clientele and the people that you coach. We all have, and you mentioned something earlier. We all have triggers. We all have thoughts that create triggers, but a lot of people don't know what those triggers do. You mentioned the don'ts. So we have thoughts toward don'ts, and the trigger releases the don'ts, but you want to use the trigger to understand, to change it to something positive. How do you help a client do that? How do you help a client change their thought process to make it more acceptable, engaging for them to change and turn things in sort of a positive light?
Yeah. So those triggers, like you were saying, they automatically lead us into this negative loop. So it's as if in our brain
Right.
we have these neural pathways that lead us down a specific road. And
Hmm.
if we've been energizing them or thinking those thoughts a lot, like it's like that pathway is even wider. And our brain,
Sure.
being a machine for efficiency, um, will move down that path as quickly as possible. So that's how we have those patterns or those triggers of don't want that just create more
Hmm.
of what we don't want. And it's like an automatic thing that just happens and we don't even notice it. What I help my clients do, this brings to mind my one of my clients. Her name was Jessica. She wanted to leave this job. She was unhappy at work. She was unhappy in her relationship. She didn't really like what she was doing. She just felt stuck. And when I asked her what she wants, it was like complete crickets. She had no idea. She had spent so much time describing her life as like living in the fifth circle of hell that she had no idea that there was even a possible way out. And she was like, I don't even know how to think about what I want. And so what I did was an exercise. It's one of the first exercises I do with my clients. And whenever I host a retreat or a workshop, where we write down all the stuff that you don't want, because that's, again, an easier list typically for people to create. And then just start turning it 180 degrees by writing down the opposite. So if you don't want a shitty marriage, what's the opposite of that? A great marriage? Okay, let's start there, right? Like, and then from there, once I
Mm.
am, in a consultation with somebody and talking to them, then I'm paying attention to their energy. I'm paying attention to what causes them to light up. Where do I see them get excited? And then from there, I'm drawing out,
Mm.
okay, tell me more about what does a great marriage mean to you? Does it mean somebody who loves your kids and thinks that having time with them is just as fun as having time with you? Like what does that look like? And I just use questions based on what they've shared with me. And once they come up with this opposites list, to help them figure out, okay, what is this that they really want? And my temperature gauge there is like, do I see them come alive? Do I see them feel excited? And when I see that shift in them, that literally just came from them thinking something differently, that's how I know we're down the right path. And then from there, we just continue to refine it and work through some of the subconscious blocks as they come up using energy healing.
Can you give us an example of a client that you work with that you would consider a success story?
Yeah. Actually, so I have a client recently. Her name is Nenny. She was feeling really dissatisfied in her career, and at the same time, she had two girls who were going away to college, and she didn't really like what she was doing, and she also wanted more time with her family. And we talked about what she really wanted, and versus what she really didn't want. And over time, it became clear that, one of the things she was passionate about was volleyball. Like, she loved volleyball, and if she could do anything, she would love to be coaching. And, I was like, well, like, that was what she saw as, like, a big vision, and I prodded her. I was like, "Well, what if you could get paid to coach volleyball?" And she was like, "Okay, like, that doesn't seem possible, but sure, I'm open to that." So we started working together. She created this vision, her having more time with her kids. We noticed that that's actually aligned because her daughters love volleyball. So her daughters were helping her as she was taking these steps towards coaching and training more in
Oh,
volleyball.
great.
So she was building these deeper relationships with her girls. And literally by the time that we got to the end of the program, before that even, she got a letter and an offer to get paid for volleyball. So now she's getting paid for that, and she's looking for additional uh, bigger dreams that she's creating for herself as a business
Wow.
owner, and she's getting to travel with her daughters as she dreamed. Even
Oh, that's
Jessica, who I
awesome.
shared earlier, she rediscovered a career in dance and exercise, and um, got to a point where her friends were saying, we never thought we'd see you smile and happy again. And now
Oh,
she's
wow.
smiling and happy and feeling fulfilled and has hope, which was something that she thought was not possible anymore.
Great story. Great story. And congrats to you for pulling that out of her. Um, Now, through your journey, you've gotten to this place where you're a coach. Tell the audience what your book is about. Does it relate to the journey? What piece of your book relates to how you got here?
Yeah, so the Manifest Your Dreams journal, this is
Hold that up
something I
again so we can see it.
sure.
Hold that up again. Great. Thank you.
So this is something that I created with my clients in mind. It's based on a system that I created for my clients because they didn't have a lot of time or energy. And I was like, okay, well, can you spend 15 minutes focused on your dream a day? Do all the normal, regular stuff you do, but just spend 15 minutes a day focusing on your dreams. And they were like, okay, yes. And my theory behind this is that it's kind of like light energy in a room, incandescent light just fills up a bunch of space. But if you were to take that same amount of energy and focus it, you'd have a laser. And lasers can cut through steel beams. So it's not about having more time or more energy. It's about being more focused with our energy, even if it's just a little bit of an amount. So I'm able to work with clients even if they just have 15 minutes. Um, and what this is it's an understanding of some of the tools. I'll talk about how I use this when I became a single mom. I was pregnant at the time. Um, I you know my I went from married to my ex moving out and filing for divorce literally within a month while I was in my first trimester. And there were so many things that it felt like I was losing. And step one in this journal is gratitude. It's all about thinking about all the good things that you do have, right? Focusing your mindset on the positive, the stuff you really want to see more of. Because again, whatever you focus on is going to expand. Second step is visualization. So it was me seeing, okay, seeing my healthy daughter, seeing me having a relationship that I want, seeing myself thriving, rebuilding my career, all those different things after the self confidence hit that I took, dealing with infidelity and all that. Third step is really unique. It's meditation. So not spending hours meditating, but seeing the difference and the impact with just 5 minutes of strategic meditation. And then step four is action. So it's about taking strategic action that's inspired and not just doing the same things that keep us on that hamster wheel.
Right. Well, we have about 30 seconds remaining. Diana, you have so much information on your career for our audience, and there's so much more to talk to you about, but we're kind of closing it out. I just wanted you to take about 10 or 15 seconds and just do a kind of a mic drop to the audience on key things that they can get by working with you.
Yeah. So I believe that any situation that you find yourself in can be turned into fertilizer for your next dream. And if you want to know more about how to take what challenges you face and to turn them into your ultimate triumph, schedule a free consultation with me. You can find the link on my website, dianabehasa.com.
Thank you so much, Diana. Thank you for joining us today on Undiscovered Gems. This is another great show. Professional of the Year, Diana Bejasa. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again if you can come back. Thank you, Diana.
Thanks, Charles.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Undiscovered Gems with our host, Charles D. Smith, highlighting today's best and brightest business minds. Brought to you by Pods Entertainment Group.